Hi, this is Mike Hendrickson from Velocity 2011. I'm here with Roger Magoulas, the Director of Research for O'Reilly Media. Roger, Velocity started, 3 years ago? And it came about because of a lot of the things that you had discovered in the data, the faint signals. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw and why we got to this point?
Sure. What we mostly saw was a lot of people focused on web operations as this kind of meta topic, where it wasn't just like off to the side, but became a primary piece of the action, from Google trying to up their speed to what Amazon was doing with web services and so forth. And we could tell that there was this kind of separate things going together. We thought if they found each other, that there could be some synergy that would happen, and we think that's exactly what we saw. And our faint signals is a lot of just even talking to people and hearing what they were saying, to things like Puppet and Chef, and we were seeing that rising interest in those from jobs and the things that we track. And just the enthusiasm people were talking about in our circles, that we could tell there was something more there than just like this kind of off to the side, as I described it before, but that a mainstream part of the actual differentiator of many businesses.
So you said you saw these signals in our data. What is our data? And you also mentioned jobs. You saw it in jobs. What are you talking about with you saw it in jobs and you saw it in the data?
Sure. So the data we track, we have kind of a subjective and an objective way of looking at things. The objective thing is that we have a database of online job posts for the last 5 years, and we look for signals in that. We think of jobs as kind of a simultaneous signal, not an early warning signal, but that when we see something there, it usually means it's made it as something to pay attention to at that point. And then the data we look at is probably what you'd expect. We're looking at blog posts, Twitter, and depending on how far back you go, it might not have been Twitter. And then we go into the subjective, where we talk to our kind of trusted network of people we know, and we hear things they're saying, and then things will come up that we start paying attention to and looking to see if they're getting traction or not. And then from there, we can then go and decide whether to do something about it, book-wise or conference-wise, or just making friends in that space so that we know what's going on.
And so do we see a growth in the whole Velocity, WebOps, DevOps movement, and what kind of growth are we seeing?
Yeah, so I'd say there's probably two main areas that we see this kind of growth, and one is just JavaScript has become just a first-class language, and there's just, you may not like it for whatever reasons, but it's there. People are doing amazing things with it, and there's nothing like that takes away from that, and the whole asynchronous nature of a lot of JavaScript makes it a really ideal tool for web stuff. The other is analytics. So, we have our Strata conference which focuses on that, but we think one of the great applied area of analytics is people are using really advanced stuff to find out what's going on. I mean, I just came out of the short talks where Google is actually anticipating what you're going to click on and preloading the page to speed things up. And we think we're going to see that all over the place, from the top end at what web pages you're going to way at the bottom end, to monitoring these tens of thousands of CPUs and what you might do to either fail over or anticipate demand and so forth. We see a lot of machine learning and so forth.
And do you see a lot of overlap with Velocity and the content here being at the bottom level, and then Strata being on a top level of the same sort of conference type data and content?
There's probably all sorts of ways to think about the kind of Venn diagram overlap of them. I think people in the Velocity community are taking a lot from the people in the Strata community about how to get their work done. So you can analyze anything, and Strata is really about how to manage data and analyze it, and then Velocity is one of the applied areas. And I think the most interesting things going on are the most sophisticated applications there, because a lot of them are real-time, which we think of as kind of the leading edge of things, because they have to be real-time to get things done, and parallelization, which is fundamentally the way that Strata people handle big data, and clearly that's what the Velocity world is all about. How do you horizontally distribute your work for both performance and resiliency?
And so are you seeing any also trends about mobile entering both spaces here, both on the Strata side and on the Velocity side?
Yeah, it's almost like mobile has become such a, I was going to say force, I don't know if that's the right captures what I want to say, is that it's not that it's its own topic, but it's significantly important, whether it's from the front ends to how people access data, to the devices they're using to do their work. and mostly to consume their work. And clearly, a lot of web stuff is going through smaller devices. And I think there's going to be a lot going on, in, like, consumer-driven on this, because I don't know that consumers wanted a PC, they wanted access to services, but they might want some of these new devices because they fit better with their notions of a device and a personal relationship they have with it. No, maybe that sounds too corny, but that's something you carry around. It's kind of instant on. You don't have to be a genius to operate it. It's very intuitive to use. So the whole mobile space is just part of the warp and woof of what we think about when we think about the environment, the computing environment we're in now. And we just think that's going to accelerate.
So that's one of the hottest moving spaces, along with Velocity, along with Strata. Are there any other areas that you see growing or changing quickly?
Those would be the three that we're most focused on. Well, the cloud is interesting because the cloud is part of all three of those things, if you really think about it. Right? The cloud is, I mean, this is what's interesting about those three things together, is that the cloud is what enables mobile to become smart. Right? Yeah. But people don't think of it necessarily as a cloud architecture. And the cloud is also part of the Strata environment, in that anyone who's building sandboxes, and which is a big part of what's going on, is get some data and do something quick, is probably throwing it into a cloud environment to do that. And really the web was also a very cloudy kind of topic. And just the whole way people are innovating, that there's this low capital way to get things going and try them out and have a path to whatever is successful, because you can expand there and then decide what you're going to do afterward. So I think cloud is not that it's going in the background, it's increasingly important, but it's important in the context of these other big trends that are going on. And the other trends we see are probably more like kind of below the level, those big topics of things around how data is being managed and just what's going on in certain languages and stuff like that.
Excellent. So, Roger, any other parting comments about trends or Velocity, where you think it's going to go for next year?
I think is going to be next year is that we're going to see more machine learning as part of it. And the other thing that, and maybe it's already here, is this notion of tracing and profiling for performance is going to become, instead of esoteric, is going to become very mainstream. That particularly with things like Clojure and its tools for optimization, that people will be optimizing the way I used to do in C, 20 years ago, that the tracing and profiling of steps I think will be big. And then more machine learning to make the operations not lights out. I don't know that that's possible, but getting closer to where some things are like that so you can focus on the things that are hard.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Roger.